we followed Agile and sprint planning. God knows how many hours I and the other product team were spending time into just the refinement. It seems like somehow we are still following the old methods.
Many teams think they are doing Agile or whatever it is, but in general, it is just a disguised waterfall.
We have a big backlog of a lot of tasks that are written and never will be developed. And why are we doing it? How can we be more efficient?
I realized that I started becoming a better product manager when I stopped doing many things.
In your experience, saying no is one of the most critical skills for a product manager. How can product managers get better at saying no, especially when dealing with strong-willed stakeholders?
They need to learn about
Welcome to the podcast, David Pereira. Happy to talk to you today. I would like to know a little bit more about your journey into the product management. I read somewhere that, if I'm not mistaken, you started to enter the tech market just to buy a guitar or something like this. So just happy to start there.
Yeah, my journey has always been, let's say, a bit funny. I never planned anything. It just happened. When I was 14, I put in my mind I wanted to be a rock star. That's the only thing I want to be. I want to play guitar and that's it. But as I grew, I realized that guitar gear was quite expensive and I didn't have money for that. So I talked to a friend of mine who was working in a computer store if he could get a job for me. And he said, maybe, but what do you know about computer? I said, I learn fast. You just show me, give me a chance, and then maybe I learn. So he talked to the owner, and the owner says, why should I hire you? You don't know anything. I said, because I can work for free for 3 months, and I will learn, and then after that, you start paying me. And the guy said, seriously? I said, yeah. And then he gave me the job. So I started working with computers, maintenance, and so on. I liked that. And then I started studying PHP and MySQL. And then I got a chance of developing some applications. After that, got a job as a developer, and I worked as a software engineer for some time. I changed after to Java and worked for 3 years. And then I bought some, of course, guitar gear, but that started distancing as I started studying computer science and all of this. I didn't have that much time anymore. But then I liked creating things. I always liked crafting stuff, and I enjoyed. And eventually, another fun thing that happened, which got me to the product world, was an unexpected thing. I wanted to improve my English, but I didn't have enough money to travel abroad. I was still in Brazil, and I wanted to travel, but it was too expensive. So I decided to go to an immersion course. That's what was affordable to me. So I took holiday of 1 week and went to this immersion course around there. What was funny, it was a town in the middle of nowhere. But there were a lot of people from the big places from Brazil, like Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, and so on. I didn't know any of them. And we were not allowed to talk in Portuguese. We had to talk only in English. And the last day, we had to present something to show how we developed the language. That was the moment I decided to show what I was working on. So it was an application. So I showed the application, I explained that. But the idea was to show the skills in English. But after that, the guy came to me and said, I want to offer you a job. I said, you want to offer me a job? I said, that's interesting. But I already have one. He said, yeah, but you don't have what I want to offer to you. I want to offer you to work as a product manager in São Paulo. So that sounds cool, but I have no idea what a product manager does. And then he told me, you don't have to worry about it. It's all about communication. And you make complex things simple. I understand what you say. I don't understand what people in São Paulo say. And I want to work with someone like you. Are you up for that? I said, sounds interesting. Maybe something to learn. That's how I got into product.
Interesting. Wow, very interesting. Let's pause here for a second. The other day, I was looking into our channel analytics and I noticed many of you guys are watching a lot of our episodes, but not yet subscribed to our YouTube page or Spotify. I will ask you as a favor, please support us by subscribing to our YouTube page and Spotify page, and I will promise you I will do everything in my power to make each episode better and better. Thank you. I had many guests on this show, and everyone has very different journey into product management. When I was checking your LinkedIn, I noticed you have a very incredible career journey from product management to coaching and then becoming an author. What inspired you to write the Untrapping Product Teams book?
So it started before the idea of the book. So I realized that everyone was talking about how great they are, what they achieved in success and so on. And that's amazing. But to get there, there's a lot of pain. It's not directly like this. And I'm pretty sure that everyone who ever succeeded failed several times. And that's something I had done a lot in my life. And I decided to share my stories. And I started sharing with people who worked with me. And some people told me, you need to get this out. Do it somewhere else. And I started posting on LinkedIn, then blogging on Medium. And then my account on Medium grew quite a lot, from 50 followers to 90,000, just by sharing my mistakes. I was not sharing anything about what you should do. I was sharing what you should not do because I did and didn't work. And that was the thing. So I did that for a few years, got invited for some meetups and so on. And I was trying to get a name to this, what I was doing. And on a walk with my wife, I said, I want a name that is catchy and easy to remember. And it reflects exactly what it is. And then we were brainstorming and different names came. But then I said, Untrapping Product Teams. She said, that's it. It reflects everything. I said, yes, I'm going to use that. Then I started my newsletter. I gave the name Untrapping Product Teams. And I started giving some talks in meetups. Untrapping Product Teams, that was the name of the talk. And the talk was all about, let's understand how reality is. Let's understand what gets in the way, what you could do different, and how could you ensure you remain out of the traps. And after a few talks, I noticed people asking me, when is the book coming out? I said, which book? They said, Untrapping Product Teams. I said, I'm not writing a book. And people would tell me, you should. I like this talk. It motivated me to do different. And then I asked people, what motivated you? I said, it gave me hope. Then I kept asking people, and more people would say, it gave me hope. I said, you know what? I'm going to pursue writing the book. That's how it happened.
And why do you think they're trapped? What do you see? What was the moment that you were like, this doesn't make any sense?
So it's a little bit of my story. I started working in São Paulo, as I mentioned. In the beginning, I thought my job was to bridge business and tech. So what I did was to write product requirements. I wrote them so precise that any software engineer could implement the solution. But they didn't know the problem they were solving. I thought my job was to ensure that every request was registered. So I bloated product backlogs. But I didn't know what mattered most. I also thought that I had to understand the wants from business. But I missed the needs from customers. That was my story in Brazil. Then I moved to another company in Brazil. I saw the same happening with more people. I moved to another company. I saw the same happening. But at this point, I had learned the job of a product manager is not exactly this. Your job is to figure out how to drive value in the middle of all the noise. I moved to Europe. I saw the same. I started coaching. I saw the same. I said, why is this happening? In the end, I realized this happens because of two things. Probably the company hasn't seen other ways of working and they keep doing the same thing, or the product managers are unaware of the traps, as I was in the beginning of my career. So that's what I observed. I said, maybe I start revealing these traps.
Can you give more examples of these traps?
Sure. Decision making. Most common way of making decisions is based on opinion. So someone has an opinion on something and the opinion becomes the direction. It's not based on evidence. And sometimes people confuse opinion with evidence. They say, I talked to a few friends and they would like to see that. And that becomes a reason to build. Still opinion, not evidence. The other way also is how teams make decisions. Too often teams make decisions based on consensus. So it's kind of, let's say, the UX designer with the product manager understand the problem space, they elaborate, and then they bring to the team everyone challenged without knowing exactly how reality looks like. None of people challenging has ever talked to a customer, but they keep challenging everything in the problem space. Then product managers, UX designers get so tired of the discussion that they agree because they are just tired of discussing. And in the end, it's the worst possible option. So expertise is ignored, and then decision is focused on consensus over consent, which is, I understand what you mean, I may disagree, but I agree to move forward. Another example would be the focus. We start measuring velocity. So we start, for example, planning what we're going to do the next 2 weeks by asking, what is our capacity? Oh, we have 2 software engineers taking a few days off, so we are going to deliver 33 star points instead of 37. It's a very weird conversation to have. But that's how it started, the sprint planning, for example, and then we start looking at the star points that will fit the 33 star point. But nobody's talking like, what did we learn last sprint? What is the most important thing right now? And which value could we aim for? So outcomes. So that's another thing that happens very often. And then, of course, in this direction is how roadmaps are set. Many roadmaps are set to fail. They define a set of features, who does what by when, and then the team has one chance of succeeding. If the feature is right, everyone succeeds. And it keeps going in this direction, pleasing stakeholders over satisfying customers, like bloating the backlogs, saying yes instead of making decisions on where to focus, which is saying no. So these are examples.
And if I read the book, is there any framework that I could kind of apply to my day-to-day decision making, or it's just great examples of what challenges you face, and now looking back, how would you approach it differently? So it's it will allow me as a reader to kind of take my perspective from the book.
Yes. So I wrote the book in a way that it's a guide. So you don't have to read the whole book. You can read, for example, the table of content and look at something you're facing as a challenge right now. You go there, you're going to find some perspectives on how to go into the decision making. I would name the questions you need to ask. And if you don't have answers to them, you should get answers before moving forward. For example, how do you know this is the right thing to do? Which evidence do you have supporting that? What are the current alternatives? What could you do right now to learn more? So there are examples on everything. I start the book by sharing how teams generally work and how the best teams work. So it's what I call the coordinative development flow. It's more or less if you are working the coordinative development flow if you talk a lot about the work. And everyone is talking about the work, but you struggle to know who is actually doing the work. There are a lot of handovers and many meetings. And the best way is a collaborative one. We focus on what we want to achieve. Roles don't matter that much, but the objective is what matters. So we focus on progressing over discussing.
When I worked in multiple different companies, and one of the companies, we more followed agile and sprint planning. And God knows how many hours I and the other product team were just I and the other product person were spending time into just giving story points and checking and the refinement and things like that. And today in the morning I had a conversation with a friend of mine that we were just discussing. I just want to know your perspective on this. Let's say going back 30 years ago, there was no such thing as product management, because there were no such thing as softwares that we use today, that rapidly you need to have features being built into it, applications how we have on our mobile phone. It was more enterprise, right? We used to have more project management, Scrum, Agile, right? But now we came to this new era where we have the new, I would say, position the ops, design ops, product ops. So it seems somehow we are still following the old methods. We are trying to kind of make it work with the new methods. And this is where I find I'm a young product manager. I haven't been a product manager in the year 2000. But from what it feels like it's not the best efficient way. And it's not the best efficient way to go through all these tasks and have these big backlog, which we always talk about. We have a big backlog of a lot of tasks that are written and never will be developed. And why are we doing it? So what's the alternative? How can we be more efficient?
Yeah, what I see happening is a disguised waterfall. Many teams think they are doing agile or whatever it is. But in general, it is just a disguised waterfall. So what I observed when I started as a software engineer, and I said I didn't know what product management was because we didn't have any product manager in the organization. We had project managers. But for example, I worked for a factory and I was a software engineer there. And our only objective was to make the employees more efficient. We want to increase productivity. That was the only thing that mattered. So what I would do, I would go and talk to the machine operators. I would ask them like, what gets in the way of getting productive? And they would tell me, here is hard. Here it takes me a lot of time to do this. There's a better way of doing that. Then they would start showing things. I would go and talk to another operator. And I would start finding patterns. After that, I would go back and I would draw something on a whiteboard, share with the other developers, and we would come up with an idea. I would sit there, code, deploy, and go to a few machines and say, this is the new version, can you run it? And then they would start using, and they would look at me and say, way better. But this is wrong. Then I would fix, go there, 3 machines, run it again, and then eventually say, let's roll out to our 500 machines. That's how I worked as a software engineer. So in short, I was talking to users. And today, in some B2B, even product managers have no idea who the users are. They don't talk. Sometimes sales will block them. Sometimes they say, wow, the persona is a persona. Like, who is the persona? I need to look at the persona. But that's what makes it super hard. Which framework did I use in 2005 when I was software engineer? The framework, I call that as, in Brazil, there was a name for that. We call it as XGO. No, XGH. That was the name. Extreme Go Horse. That's what we call it. Because we were just running and trying to do something. We didn't really have a plan, but we had a clear objective. Productivity is all that matters. Then I moved to product management and things start getting different. Like, you need to do the sprint planning, you need to do this, you need to do that, and you need to do this, and you need to get approval on that, and so on. I said, why is it so hard like that? I realized that I started becoming a better product manager when I stopped doing many things. So it was not when I mastered the art of writing user stories or frameworks or all of this. It's when I improved my storytelling. So I came to software engineers and said, that's what I learned. How can we solve this problem? And they would write the backlog items based on this. And then we would aim to solve that problem as if it was solved. But today I see questions that are very weird. How can I do discovery with Scrum? How can I apply lean UX with Kanban? These questions are totally wrong. The thing that matters is like, how can I reduce my learning time? That's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter the framework. What I see the future, it is a mix and match. So there are many frameworks out there. So you should select pieces that fits your need and use them. For example, I am a big fan of ShapeUp, but I don't work with ShapeUp. But I like the betting table. I use betting table from ShapeUp. What I like from Scrum is the retrospective. I use the retrospective. I also use the review. I don't like the cycle, so I don't use it. So I work more similar to ShapeUp in this case. The teams are dynamic. So we select what we're going to work on and who are the best people to make that happen. And then we set the team like that. So if you ask me which framework do I use, I would say I can tell you the parts of frameworks I use and I can tell what for. But I don't use the framework by the book.
I love that. I really wish a lot of the PMs would see it like that. I think half of the LinkedIn posts will be immediately gone. Half of the fights will be immediately over. One saying this is wrong, the other one saying that is right. No, this is exactly what's in my mind, and this is exactly what I had the conversation with today with a friend of mine. And also, we constantly talk about like our perspective and us being in our meetings, but when you talk to the engineers, they also hate this. They hate to be in one-on-one and going through everything with you. They wanna code. They wanna know what to build. They want to be left alone. Once they are done or they need help, they will come to you. Obviously, you gotta do some management there, make sure everyone's their style is also different. But in general, their job is not to be in a meeting. Our job is like, we kind of know we are accepting it, but they really don't want it.
Exactly. So that's the situation happens right now. I had a podcast recently with Michael I'm releasing soon, but there was one interesting conversation that we talked about playing by the book. And he had a perspective saying a new team should play by the book to learn. And I would tell them, if I come back after 3 months, I want to see you doing that perfectly by the book. But if I come back after 1 year and you are doing like that, I'm pissed off because it means you didn't learn. It means you didn't adapt that to your situation. And that's what I see happening. Someone starts following a framework and then they stop learning. They stop challenging why we are doing that in the first place. I remember almost all places I arrived, in the workflow, there was one step called PO approval or PM approval. And that was sometimes in different places. Generally, is that before quality assurance or after, it doesn't matter, but there was this part. So there was a kind of gatekeeper there. And what I realized, soft engineers became reckless because they knew I would look at everything and then I would say thumbs up or thumbs down. And I realized that it would go through many things, like soft engineers would do code review, there would be a test and so on and so on. Then UX, then I would come there and look and say, no, it's not good, go back, and then they have to do all over again. I looked at the guy and said, that's nonsense. I said, we would be better off without it. The Scrum Master went nuts with me. Scrum Master said, we didn't agree on removing that on a retrospective. No one raised this topic, so you should not remove. And I said, I don't want to approve anything. We are a team. We are on the same level. I said, I want to increase the speed of feedback. What I suggest doing is during the daily, when someone needs help, show me. And then I give feedback on the machine. And it will become even more beautiful when they don't need to show me because they learn the context and they understand what it is, so I can do other things. And then we start doing that. Interesting enough, the quality increase, the speed increase, and the commitment increase just by removing something. And my time also increased because I didn't have to do this all the time.
In your experience, saying no is one of the most critical skills for a product manager. How can product managers get better at saying no, especially when dealing with strong-willed stakeholders?
So they need to learn about people around them. The thing that's not going to work is that if they say no without explaining why. If they just say no, it will become a power fight. So a better way is being a better product manager. So what am I talking about? You ask questions. And you ask questions to understand how prepared the person is. And ultimately, you help the person say no to herself. So what am I talking about here? Someone comes with an idea. And then the person says, I want you to implement this. First thing you say, great. What makes you excited about it? And then the person will explain. And then you ask, how did you come to this idea? The person will explain. And then you can start asking, which evidence gives you the confidence that this is the right thing to do? And evidence can be different. Some people will say, I talked to a few friends. I would call that weak evidence. Other people would say, two customers said to sales, they would sign the contract if we would have this feature. Weak evidence. But if someone signed the letter of intent, it's a different evidence. But you ask, which evidence do you have? And then you ask another question. If we would not do that, what happens? Then you understand the problem. So you start exploring. Then you can also ask, which problem does it solve? And then you ask, how satisfied are the users with the current alternative they have? And when you ask these kind of questions, people will not have the answers. You can help them get the answers, but you should not say yes without them. So that's what I do with people. I say, all right, might be a potential idea, but we need to understand more the context. And this is to build some trust. Then you start building like alignment and people will say, okay, I need more. Of course, you can play harder and start filtering out. You can start asking questions. How does this help our current strategy? And if it doesn't help, you say, I'm sorry, but I cannot work on something that distracts us from our current strategy. But this won't help you build the relationship you need with stakeholders. Because the hardest part is not saying no. It's to keep the relationship sustainable. Because the truth is stakeholders are not your enemies, but they are not your customers. They are your partners. And by stakeholders here, I'm talking about the business stakeholders. So unless you have an internal product, they are not your customers. So you need to build partnerships with them.
Yeah, absolutely. In my experience, calendar overload is a reality for most product managers. How can product managers reclaim their time and focus on the right things beside the meetings?
They need to be brave in this case. And I say that often, teams think they are doing Agile, working with Scrum, or whatever framework they think they are, but they are doing kind of hidden framework. I call it the calendar-driven framework, which means whatever is in your calendar is what you will be doing, even though you may not know what that matters for. So that's the thing. So what I suggest, when you start your week, start with a blocker. If you are a morning person, block the whole morning. And what you need to solve that is the following. What should I achieve by the end of this week? What is your goal by the end of the week? And then you reflect. How does your calendar support that goal? You will see it doesn't. So you clean it up and you tell people what your goal is. And you define how you're going to act to achieve your goal. Make it transparent to the others. Another aspect is looking at all the meetings you have. You need to develop a culture, and it starts from doing it. When you send an invitation, what is the goal of the meeting? A meeting needs to have a goal. It needs to have an agenda. How do you get to the goal? And then you look at all people that you are supposed to invite and ask, do I really need them? Without them, do we get blocked? If not, don't invite the person. And then you can even ask, all right, is it possible to solve that asynchronously? If it is, just do it. Sometimes you don't need a meeting, you need a well-structured message. You need some context. So today what happens is very challenging because before the pandemic, we had the office. It was with unlimited space. So meeting rooms were limited with limited chairs. Today, we have virtually unlimited meeting rooms with unlimited chairs. So as a result, everything becomes a meeting. So it's a bit of a game. You look in the calendar, who is available, you just select it and find a slot, and then you book that. Where's the spontaneity? What I suggest doing is continuously reflect on your goal, clean up your calendar, and then do some silent work. Many times for example, you talk about ideation. Sometimes we do ideation. Today, I see very poorly prepared ideation. Just get everyone in the room and start ideating, create post-its and then prioritize post-its and so on. A better way is start with the context, prepare a board, invite people for 15 minutes context sharing. Just share the context, then you share the board, meet and another time to do the ideation when people are prepared. But preparation is what is necessary. It's not about getting everyone in the room and keep talking about it. What you need is to ensure that preparation takes place and you share that with people. And you can only do that if you put focus time in your calendar and you set boundaries. So, for example, now that I lead an organization, sometimes I do annoying things. I look at people's calendar and I see meetings with 8 people and I ask what could you do instead? And sometimes they say, well, if we do asynchronously, I said, then do it. And then they save time. Because getting more people in the room makes collaboration more complicated.
That's so true. That's so true. For this podcast episode, I watched a couple of your talks. And in one of them, I believe you talked about something, either a bad management or a bullshit product management, something like this. So I just want to know more. What do you see that be? What is that, either bad management or bullshit product management?
So product management, if you try defining what it is, for me it would be the art of uncovering what drives value and enabling the organization to collect value and driving value for customers. It's all about creating value. It's kind of uncovering problems worth solving and building solutions worth building. That's the magic, connecting the dots throughout all the noise. It's It's complex, but we can do that in a simple way if we are willing to step into the unknown. But then it comes what I call bullshit management. That's when it hits reality. Because it's very hard to drive value when almost everyone distracts you. And then you end up doing anything but product management. And then it comes the real enemy, which I call bullshit management. And I define bullshit management as the art of doing things that create no value but drain your energy. And then when you look at it, the more bullshit you handle, the less value you create. So what is bullshit? People may wonder. So if you're listening to this episode now, look at your activities and ask one question. How does my activity drive value or support value creation? And if you don't have the answer, that's a sign that's not product management, it's bullshit management. It's hard, but true. Once someone asked me to do the following. I want you to create a report with all features delivered over the last 12 months. And I want to know which developer worked on each feature and how many bugs were created for each feature. Because I want to understand the quality level of our developers. I look at a person, this report is going to take a lot of time and it's going to create zero value for everyone. I said, why? Because if I look at this, I will understand who are the low performers. I said, no, you won't. You will assume you know. I said, a great team will work together and they will level up each other. If you start creating this, you create a competition inside the team. And deliver more features means better. It doesn't. Creating less bugs, does it mean better? So if it does, then people will start working towards that, because whatever you reward, it will become the norm. But this report, it would create no value. So I said, I'm simply not doing it. But it happens all the time. Someone wants something that makes no sense. Sometimes you need to create a timeline because someone wants that. Sometimes you need to create a great presentation that nobody will ever look again, but you have to spend time on that. So these things just distract you. And what I say is like, there's a saying for software engineering, there's always more to do than capacity. That's the reason backlogs are always cluttered. It's always full because there's always more than capacity. And in product management, it's the same. There's always more things you could do than things you should do. So you need to choose carefully what not to do. Because if you say yes to all the activities, you will have no energy to do product management.
Don't you think also part of this is an organizational issue rather than a personal issue? Because I personally worked at the organization which my managers will brag. Like, oh, this week I was in 50 hours of meeting. And I would look and I'm like, oh, I was only at 25, so I must be lame.
You're right. And that's one thing that I say a lot. You cannot avoid bullshit management, but you can learn how to deal with it. So one thing is like, no matter the situation you are, you always have a choice. And I say the choice, it's one or the other. You can become the victim of circumstance and say, this is what is happening. The world is not perfect. So yeah, I'm trapped. There's nothing I can do about it. The other choice is be the hero of your story. It's not the hero of the company. You're not going to be the hero of the company. But you can decide what you're going to do within the cards you have. Many people look at me and say, I am not allowed to do product discovery because management doesn't support. I say, you can rephrase that too. I'm not brave enough to start doing product discovery because you don't need to ask for permission. You can do something right now. The first thing you can do is whatever feature you have, name the assumptions behind it. You can name the assumptions. And you can run product experiments in hours. And then you show the results and you talk about it. So when you are the victim of the circumstance, you're going to do the following. You look at all the cards you don't have and you complain. So if you're going to play the game, the move you're going to do is the following. You fold. You simply don't play. Because you don't have the cards you like. But the hero, you look at the cards you have and you say, what is the move I can do right now? That maybe, just maybe, I can win a card I don't have. Then you try something. Small, doesn't matter. Things I tried already. In one of the plays, I had like 1,763 items in the backlog. I panicked. So I deleted everything that was older than 6 months. Then I deleted again. So I just tried. Yeah, some people said, you cannot do that. But I just did it. I said, yeah, I just did it. So what? So let's keep trying. Let's remove what distracts us. But then when you realize that you find time to do product management, people start supporting you. Some people will ask, like, how can you find this time? Then you can help them. Then more people start doing this. But it takes a lot of patience because you don't change one thing from day to night. And you do need to swallow some things. For a long time of my life, I had to swallow the output-oriented roadmaps. And that was how we played the game. But once we help people see that this way is limiting for the team, we could change. How long it took? 6 months to change. It's not simple.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. Failure is inevitable in product management, but it can be also a powerful teacher. Can you share a story from your career where a failure led to a breakthrough or a valuable lesson?
I have so many failures. There's a story, it was one of my first big failures. This one was very painful. So I worked for an agency in Brazil, and we had created a product for our internal usage, and out of this product we would create reports for our customers. What we did in general was to train the sales force of big companies like Adidas, Philips, and so on. We trained their sales force. And their sales force was spread all over Brazil, so our trainers had to travel all over Brazil. And they used our product. But what happened was that for some trainings, the big ones, for some reason they used spreadsheets. Then the business analyst responsible for that came to me and said, you know how long it takes for me to combine these spreadsheets and create a report? 3 weeks. It's very complex because everyone will use a different spreadsheet, and no matter what I do, they will tweak the spreadsheet and it will make my life harder. Customers will complain, and then I cannot deliver the report on time. And then we came up with an idea of creating a digital portal for training. And I got excited about it. And for me, the problem was clear. Avoid the spreadsheets and then we can create something that will allow us to have standard reports. It was awesome. Everyone inside the business loved that. And we started building. After 3 months of building and getting approved internally, it was time to show the trainers how they would start reporting the training. So what happened was very interesting. I traveled to the south of Brazil with this business analyst, and we want to present to the trainers. There were 50 to 70 people in the room. Don't remember the exact number. But as we presented, everyone looked super skeptical. No one was excited. And then the more we presented, the more skeptical they looked. Someone broke the silence eventually. And the person asked just one question. How do I use that in the airplane? I said, airplane? A person said, yes. I generally do these things when I'm flying. And that was the moment I realized we missed the problem space. I focused really much on the challenge we had, but I didn't explore the problem space enough. And I realized the solution we created was not a solution. So we created a problem we shouldn't have in the first place. So what we had to do to fix this problem, we created a way of importing the spreadsheet. So in short, we had a lot of trouble doing that because we just transferred the problem from the business analyst to the technical team to make that possible. It took another 3 months to make that possible, and it was not easy. My learning was when you are creating something, you do need to understand the problem space, understand what is natural over what is rational, because it was very rational for us. But the routine of these trainers traveling all over Brazil was very different, and that was a part I missed. It was painful because one thing that we first aimed to create that in 2 months, then we created in 3 months, then we needed another 3 months to fix that.
Interesting story. We are slowly getting close to the end of the podcast episode. Is there something that you would like to share with the audience, something you have been working on, newsletter of yours, a recent blog post?
Well, the topic now is about AI, and there is some narratives that AI is going to replace everything, will replace all product managers, software engineers, will replace even what you don't know, but it will replace. So what I want to tell people is AI is transformative. And curiosity is very important. Curious about AI will be able to leverage your potential. So you can use AI to supercharge your potential. So I suggest that product people don't get afraid, but they get inspired. Check it out, new products, see how they can integrate in their day-to-day. And think about the small things. I used AI a lot for my book. We talked about it. I used to consolidate feedback. But you need to learn a little bit about prompt engineering. For example, if you upload a CSV file there and ask, give me the sentiment, it will be very mediocre result. But if you tweak that saying, give me the positive insights, number of mentions, the negative aspects, number of mentions, opportunities, and so on, and you start tweaking, you can reuse that a lot and you will just get more insights faster. So my recommendation is to use AI to leverage your potential. But there are a few things that will keep you relevant in the market. And overall, I say there are three. It's your curiosity. So you need to continuously explore the unknown. And the other is the resilience. Being a product manager is very hard. No matter how good you are going to hit the wall. Even now, after more than 15 years in the role, I hit the wall sometimes, and that's fine. But it's about standing up and keep moving forward. That's all it takes. And your drive. You should be self-motivated. Get excited about the craft, get excited about the journey, and keep moving. So when you have a good combination of drive, resilience, and curiosity, you're gonna remain relevant and keep moving. That's what I like sharing.
Oh, thank you so much. Folks, make sure to check out David's LinkedIn and his newsletter. He posts awesome contents there. Thank you so much, David, for joining this episode. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Wow, you made it till the end. I'm very proud of you. Comment down below which part of the podcast did you like the most and who should I interview next. Also, on the screen, you will see a lot of our other great episodes that you should definitely check out.